After Dad died, Mom remarried, taking my sister and me with her, but the other party only allowed Mom to take one child. From those who came to pay their respects to Father, I learned that Grandpa was an antique collector and very wealthy. My sister clung to Grandpa, refusing to let go, but Grandpa only urged her to study hard, living a very frugal life in terms of food, clothing, and expenses. In contrast, my stepfather's business thrived, and he moved us into a large villa, where I even got engaged to a wealthy yen master. Driven mad with jealousy, she doused me with gasoline, and together we returned to the moment of choice. This time, she tightly grasped my stepfather's hand and said, "I want to stay with Mom and Dad." I hurriedly ran behind Grandpa. "Sister, this life that's been treated as a bargaining chip at the wine table, I'm giving it to you." Mom looked at my sister and me with a troubled expression. "Sheen sheen, meow meow, which one of you wants to come with me?" "The other will stay and live with Grandpa." Mom glanced at me, then looked at my sister with concern. My sister has always been closer to her since childhood, so naturally, she wanted my sister to go with her. Under our mother's hopeful gaze, my sister took the initiative to grab our stepfather's hand. "Mom and Dad, I want to go with you." Meanwhile, I ran behind my grandfather and held his calloused hand. On the other side, my sister curled her lips into a mocking smile. I know she must have been reborn as well. In our previous life, after Dad passed away, we faced a similar choice, but at Dad's memorial service, my sister heard that Grandpa was an antique collector, so she chose him without hesitation. Before leaving, she even said to me with a haughty tone, "I'll soon be living a life of luxury with Grandpa, while you'll be stuck babysitting for our stepdad." But when she arrived at her grandfather's house, it was completely different from the classical estate she had imagined. There was only a brick-and-tile self-built house, a yard full of dirt, and a dilapidated tricycle. She searched high and low but couldn't find the antique jewelry she had imagined he collected. She ran to ask her grandfather, only to be met with his angry rebuke. "Who told you I collect antiques? At your age, studying is the most important thing for you." While others were playing in the fields during summer vacation, she could only stay in her room, struggling through obscure and difficult books. She also wanted to dress up and go out, but her coarse linen clothes could only be mended and patched for another year. Her grandfather usually just farmed the land and played leaf cards with the old men in the village. The money he gave her was only enough for daily meals. Then my stepfather's business became increasingly prosperous, and we moved from the resettlement housing to a commercial property, and then from the commercial property to a villa area. Soon, the Lee family's reputation became well known. I wore luxurious gowns, with perfect makeup on, and appeared with my stepfather at various high society gatherings. Everyone who met me praised my graceful demeanor, saying it was clear that I came from a well-bred family. The school is a prestigious institution, with luxury cars for transportation. When Chin Miao was picked up during winter break, she was wearing a faded school uniform. Her younger brother clicked his tongue and buried his head in their mother's arms, saying, "Who is she? She smells awful." At the dinner table, my stepfather discussed with me which balls we would attend the following week, what etiquette training classes I would take next, and asked my mother to take me shopping for more beautiful clothes. Chin Miao wanted to find a topic to join in, but found she couldn't get a word in edgewise. She cried out in grievance, "I should have been a daughter of the Lee family too, so why does she have everything while I have nothing?" Her stepfather frowned at her mother and said, "Who told you to be soft-hearted and bring her here, when we're discussing serious matters? Where do you get the right to interrupt?" Chin Miao thought her mother would stand up for her, but instead, her mother said, "If it weren't for fear of gossip, then I've made it big and don't care about my other daughter." Sigh. It's true that a child raised in the countryside ends up with such a mean-spirited look. That day, Chin Miao broke many things, and her stepfather couldn't tolerate her. In the end, it was her grandfather who braved the heavy rain and rode his tricycle to bring her back. After her sister returned, their grandfather never allowed her to sneak off to the Lee family again. Her stepfather also told her mother not to bother with this useless, worthless daughter, so she could only stay at her grandfather's house, where he supervised her studies every day. When the college entrance exam results came out, she did well and her hope of returning to the Lee family was rekindled. She was overjoyed and brought her admission letter to the Lee family, but no one paid any attention to her, because today is my farewell party. My stepfather had already pulled some strings to send me abroad for a gilded education. The hairpin in my hair, the bracelet on my wrist, and the necklace around my neck were all sparkling, stimulating Chin Miao's eyes. She struggled through the crowd, trying to show her admission letter to her mother and stepfather, but she was pushed to the ground by the younger brother in front of me. Where did this beggar come from? Are the security guards outside not doing their job? Chin Miao was pulled up, and only then did her mother recognize her. Her admission letter had fallen to the ground and was trampled into a tattered mess. Mom just had her released and never bothered with her again. Mom took me around to chat with the wives of various CEOs. I was poised and gracious, making them all very happy. Your eldest daughter is truly something, elegant and graceful. Any family that marries her would be truly blessed. I heard you have a little daughter too. How is she doing? Mother waved her hand dismissively. Let's not talk about her. She's just as miserly and stingy as her grandfather. Chen Miao stood awkwardly to the side, watching me mingle throughout the hall, holding a glass of red wine. I chatted quite happily with the young master from a wealthy family in front of me. My stepfather clapped his hands, and the room fell silent. He took my hand and led me onto the stage. My daughter is 18 now, and it's time for me to let her go out and explore the world. After saying this, my stepfather smiled and handed me a bank card. Studying abroad isn't like being at home. You must take good care of yourself. It was a touching scene of father-daughter affection. Then Fu Xinian stepped forward, gently knelt on one knee, and kissed the back of my hand. I'll wait for you to come back. When Fu Xinian stood up, my stepfather placed my hand in his and announced the ultimate purpose of this farewell party. After Xinxin returns from abroad, she will be engaged to Xinian. Everyone applauded to express their blessings, while some young men from prominent families sighed with regret. However, Fu Xinian is truly remarkable. At such a young age, he has secured so many major deals, almost surpassing his father. Chen Miao's gaze was venomous, fixed on me like a serpent's. All of this should have been hers, the life of luxury, the engagement to an outstanding man. That night, I received a text from Chen Miao, asking me to keep her company and chat. Sister, I'm in so much pain. I miss you. I casually threw on a piece of clothing and headed to the meeting spot we had agreed upon. Chen Miao turned to look at me, her face twisted with madness, holding a bucket in her hand. If it weren't for you, all of this would be mine. After saying that, she splashed the liquid from the bucket onto me, clung to me tightly, and threw a lighter. Sister, if I can't have a good life, you won't either. Let's die together. Both she and I perished in the flames, and once again, we returned to this moment of choice. This time, she was the first to choose Mom and her stepfather. Before leaving, she stepped forward and hugged me with a show of sisterly affection, whispering mockingly in my ear, "Just go rot with the old relic, you pathetic pauper." Riding in Grandpa's tricycle, I arrived in the countryside. It was indeed not as good as the city, but it wasn't as bad as Chen Miao had described earlier. Grandpa had already prepared the room in advance. The room had a wooden bed, a wooden desk, and a wooden bookshelf. The room was filled with the scent of wood, which made me feel very comfortable. I opened the suitcase. There weren't many things inside, so I finished organizing them quickly. Grandpa had already finished plowing the field and returned with a hoe in hand, carrying a piece of meat as well, even though he didn't say anything. I knew he had bought it especially for me. Grandpa wasn't much of a talker, but he kept piling meat onto my plate. After you finish eating, go wash the dishes. There's no dishwasher in the countryside. Before he could even finish speaking, I had already taken the initiative to wash the dishes. Grandpa snorted with a hint of pride. The road ahead is still long. Today doesn't count as a hard day. Since you're following me, there will be plenty more hardships to come. I know he's all bark and no bite. The next day, I sneezed because I caught a slight chill. That evening, an extra blanket appeared on the bed. The bookshelf Grandpa prepared was filled with books. Many of them were about history, and they looked particularly old, with some even missing their covers. Grandpa sternly insisted that I finish reading these books, but history is truly dull and difficult to understand. At night, Grandpa would take me to sit in the courtyard, gaze at the starry sky, and tell me those magnificent hero stories. Gradually, I developed an interest. Occasionally, Grandpa would also teach me how to identify soil layers. If I made a mistake, he would scold me for being foolish, but he would secretly jot down my mistakes in his little notebook. Life was frugal, but Grandpa was extremely good to me. Even though he never expressed his love, he thought that as a girl, I might struggle without my mother's company. So he often asked the available aunties in the village to look after me. The winter break passed in the blink of an eye, and school was about to start. Late at night, I could still see him scrubbing the mud stains off that tricycle. Grandpa dropped me off at the school gate, and before I even entered, I saw Chen Miao and her mother. Chen Miao stepped out of a luxury car, carrying a designer bag and holding her mother's hand, looking like a proud swan. When Chen Miao saw me, she eagerly came over to take my hand but suddenly stopped in front of me, covering her nose. "Sister, why do you smell like cow dung?" I also covered my nose because the scent on her was overwhelming me. Chen Miao feigned surprise. "Sister, why are you riding an ox cart to school? I thought Grandpa was an antique collector. I just arrived in a luxury car worth millions." Then she calmly greeted some young masters and ladies who had stepped out of luxury cars. Chen Miao turned to look at me. Sister, you and I are no longer in the same world. Dad takes me to all sorts of parties every day, not like you, always buried in the dirt. She stepped on my shoe. These shoes are so dirty. Mine are hundreds of times more expensive than yours. Stepping on you is a favor. I wasn't angry. I crouched down, wiped the shoe clean with my sleeve, then calmly looked at her. Do you want to take out all the anger you've suffered in the Lee family on me? Chin Miao laughed in fury. Suffered? How could I suffer when I live in luxury every day? You'd better worry about yourself. But I could see her discomfort at having her dark side exposed by me. After returning home from school, I was in my room doing homework. There was a knock at the door, but when I opened it, I only saw a shoebox on the ground. The grandson of Aunt Hong next door goes to the same school as me. Yesterday, I heard him fussing about wanting to buy new shoes for the upcoming physical education class. Before I could even say anything, the shoes were already at the door. A warm current surged within my heart, and suddenly, my face felt damp. In the Lee family, there was only self-interest. Where could one find genuine affection? A teenager's stomach is already fragile, yet every day after school, Li Jing would bring out all sorts of alcohol and force me to drink. With every glass I drank, I had to come up with some flattering words. On Saturdays and Sundays, I also have to go learn social dancing. What they call social dancing is actually about finding the right angles while dancing to let men catch a glimpse of what they want to see, allowing them to take advantage. I once asked my mom if this wasn't a sign of not respecting myself. I still remember my mom stroking her stomach with a cold expression, saying, "All of this is to nurture you. Can't you just be a little more sensible? They make me pour drinks for those CEOs, pretending to be naive to satisfy their hidden desires, that way." My stepfather can discuss cooperation. Even my marriage was arranged by them. Fu Xinian may appear glamorous on the surface, but in private, he indulges more than anyone else. I was passed around like a bargaining chip at the dinner table, often waking up in the middle of the night from the pain, even with a stomach hemorrhage. I was just given an injection and then taken to the cocktail party to continue playing the role of a social butterfly. The semester ended, and summer vacation arrived. It was rare for my mother to contact my grandfather, wanting to bring me back. I knew they were planning to buy a piece of land and needed to negotiate the deal with a big boss. They took me back just to highlight Chin Miao's uniqueness in my previous life. They did the same thing, only to disappoint Chin Miao in the end. I didn't want to go back, but I was afraid they would keep bothering Grandpa, so I went with them. This boss is not that kind of person. In my previous life, my stepfather, with his petty mindset, misjudged the gentleman's intentions and ruined the business. He even blamed me, but he wouldn't hit me because he still needed to use me. He just used the excuse of maintaining my figure to punish me by not letting me eat for a few days. Previously, my stepfather had arranged to meet in the banquet hall, but the boss took him directly to that piece of land. My sister was wearing a miniskirt, and her legs were covered in red welts from bug bites, yet she still had to keep smiling. The boss asked my stepfather, "Do you want to buy this piece of land?" My stepfather nodded like a rattle drum, but then he heard the boss ask, "Do you know what this place used to be? Do you know what this soil represents?" The three members of the Lee family stammered and couldn't answer. Suddenly, I remembered the story my grandfather had told me. This place used to be a cemetery. The color of this soil looks like it has settled for a long time, so its history must be very ancient. The boss's eyes lit up. "Who taught you that?" "I never expected the daughter of General Manager Lee to know how to identify soil layers. You're quite knowledgeable." This was something from my grandpa's stories. I just borrowed it on the spot, never expecting to be praised for it. My stepfather still hadn't caught on to the boss's true intentions at this point and pushed Chin Miao forward. Xinxin has been in the countryside all along. What kind of knowledge could she have? Let our Miao Miao keep you company instead. The boss finally understood why Chin Miao was dressed that way and grew a bit angry. "I won't sell this land. And don't think I'm the kind of despicable person you imagine me to be." After the unpleasant parting, my stepfather brought us home with a grim expression. Chin Miao cried pitifully. "If it weren't for that seductress Chen Xin, I would have succeeded for sure. She deliberately sabotaged everything." My mother chimed in from the side. "I should have known better than to bring her back. As soon as she returned, she ruined a major family affair." My stepfather, having nowhere else to vent his anger, slapped me across the face. He pulled out his belt and lashed it at me. "You jinx, it hurts so much." The more I resisted, the harder he hit me. Am I going to be beaten to death here today? As I was losing consciousness, I seemed to see a tall, straight figure. Am I hallucinating? Why does it look so much like that proud little old man from my family? When I woke up, I was in a VIP hospital room, with 3 nurses gathered around my bed, kindly asking how I was feeling. I'm a bit dazed. Is this heaven? So many angels in white? I'm still wrapped in bandages when a doctor comes in and carefully examines me. Grandpa walks in from outside, and the doctor respectfully addresses him as Elder Chin. Your granddaughter is fine now. I quietly tug on Grandpa's sleeve. Grandpa, I'm not seriously hurt. There's no need to stay in such an expensive. Before I could finish speaking, Grandpa frowned and said, What's not worthy about my granddaughter? Not long after, the boss from that day also came, bringing me many gifts to show his concern. He gave an ingratiating smile, showing no trace of the arrogance he had displayed in front of my stepfather earlier. So you're Mr. Chen's granddaughter. No wonder you're so knowledgeable and talented, Grandfather said with a stern face. I recall you have an auction coming up, don't you? The other party quickly nodded. We sent you an invitation earlier, but you didn't reply. The next day, I was taken by my grandfather to a splendidly decorated exhibition hall. Once inside, I saw the three members of the Li family. Chen Miao's youthful figure was forced into a low-cut gown. The men surrounding her all wore expressions of amusement. When my stepfather saw my grandfather leading me in, he gave my mother a meaningful look. My mother, arm in arm with my stepfather, approached. What are you doing here? Don't even think about asking for medical expenses. It was Chen Xian who messed things up. How dare you come chasing after us? My stepfather snorted viciously. You were lucky I didn't beat you to death that day. If you dare disturb my auction today, I'll take care of you altogether. Chen Miao walked over with a wine glass, her voice coquettish. Dad, Mr. Wang over there is calling for you. I could see the forced smile on Chen Miao's face. That Mr. Wang, with his fat head and big ears, had just groped her several times. Perhaps thinking she was doing better than me no matter what, Chen Miao sneered mockingly. How dare you come to the auction dressed in coarse linen? What do you think this place is? She called over the black-clad security guards nearby and had them drive me and my grandfather away. Grandfather stood tall and imposing, wearing a coarse cloth robe, and the security guards dared not approach him. Instead, they turned their attention to me, who was standing to the side. Just as one of them was about to push me, Mr. Hu, the organizer of the auction, rushed over. With a sharp slap, he knocked the security guard to the ground. What the hell are you doing to my honored guest? Boss Hu ran over and even kicked the security guard a few times. I looked at Grandpa with some surprise. I thought Boss Hu was just familiar with him, but I didn't expect him to hold Grandpa in such high regard. Many people were drawn by the commotion here and gathered around. The stepfather looked at Boss Hu with some surprise. Boss Hu, are you mistaken? My daughter has only met you once. How could she be your distinguished guest? Then his cunning eyes swept over me and Boss Hu, clearly thinking about those indecent things again. The people who gathered around were all those the stepfather had asked me to please in my previous life, and, of course, they were also Chen Miao's targets in this life, but unexpectedly, they bowed and scraped. Addressing my grandfather as Mr. Chen, Grandfather pulled me in front of him, his voice authoritative. This is my granddaughter, and she will be my sole heir from now on. As soon as he finished speaking, the bosses, who in my previous life I had to flatter and drink with just to get close to, bowed and handed me their business cards. Miss Chen, if you ever need anything in the future, feel free to contact me. Miss Chen, you attend school at A, right? I have a nephew there. You too could. Miss Chen, the expressions on the faces of the three members of the Li family were as unpleasant as if they had eaten something foul. The person they had been fawning over was now fawning over me and my grandfather. These two poor, shabby people they had looked down upon. Just thinking with a bit of common sense, it's clear that Grandpa's identity is not simple. It seems that the idle talk from those few people is mostly true. Then, Boss Hu respectfully invited Grandpa and me inside, leading us to a refined small room on the second floor of the entire auction venue. Inside, there were many astronomically priced fruits, and according to Boss Hu, the tea was also premium Westlake Longjing. The Li family of three were seated in an inconspicuous spot at the back of the first floor. Boss Hu gave Grandpa a small booklet, which seemed to list the treasures to be auctioned today. After putting on his reading glasses, Grandpa handed me an auction number plate. Bid on whatever you like, and if you dislike someone, just outbid them. There's nothing my granddaughter can't do. After saying that, he left with Boss Hu. A cheapao-clad beauty stepped onto the stage, her mature and beautiful figure wrapped in a deep blue cheongsam, her voice warm and pleasant. All the items today are guaranteed authentic, so the prices will be adjusted slightly. If any are found to be fake, we will compensate tenfold. The price of an antique is no small sum, and a tenfold compensation for such a private auction is almost impossible. So immediately, the entire room erupted in whispers, filled with skeptical inquiries. The beauty, however, remained calm and composed, smiling confidently. Today, Mr. Chen is here to appraise treasures at the auction, so our boss has this confidence. If you haven't heard of Mr. Chen, You might as well leave now." With just one sentence, the entire room fell silent, and then everyone's face showed a look of determination. The treasures were divided into 3 levels, B, A, and S, representing their appreciation potential, all of which seemed to have been determined by my grandfather. At first, I didn't dare to raise my paddle, but then a beautiful older sister came in with a message, saying that my grandfather told me to raise it as I pleased. I tentatively bid on a vase. The starting bid was 30,000, and I won it for 280,000. 280,000 could buy a lot of tricycles. I felt a bit of a pang, but just then, Grandpa walked in, patted my head, and said, "Well done, you need to have that kind of courage from now on. It is easy to go from frugality to luxury, but difficult to return from luxury to frugality." Spending hundreds of thousands in one go felt light and effortless, as if it had no impact at all. Li Jing didn't know that my grandfather and I were in the private room upstairs, and he was determined to bid on an S-grade item. Not only did it have potential, but it could also help restore his image in Basu's eyes. But I kept raising the bid, and by the time I stopped, the price had already exceeded Li Jing's expectations. He didn't have that much money anymore. Li Jing looked at Qin Miao beside him, and Qin Miao could only grit her teeth and take out her phone. Seemingly contacting those men, I sneered. Those men had always treated women as playthings. They would do business with Li Jing, but they wouldn't spend money for Qin Miao. Li Jing was menacingly poking Qin Miao's head, while I raised my paddle once more. The final S-grade treasure was secured by me. After that, whatever he bid on, I followed suit, leaving him with nothing. When it was time to settle the payment, Li Jing scolded Qin Miao angrily. "I told you to wear less on a regular basis. And look at you, you can't even manage to borrow money properly." Mom was already pregnant at this time, turning her back to Qin Miao with an indifferent expression. "When the VIP guests in the private room arrive, you know what to do." Qin Miao quickly nodded. Unexpectedly, my grandfather and I walked over. My stepfather only thought of my grandfather as an appraiser, but he never expected my grandfather to pull out a black card from a plastic bag. The cheapao-clad sister maintained a polite distance from others, but toward Grandpa, she wore a warm, beaming smile. "Master, you've arrived." At this, Li Jing looked at his mother in confusion, and she too was at a loss. The sister snorted coldly. "You don't even know about Elder Chen. Elder Chen is a famous antique collector who has previously returned many treasures purchased from abroad to the country." After saying this, she had the bodyguards escort us back home. Qin Miao watched us leave in disbelief, his gaze as venomous as a snake's. Back home, I learned from the praises of the bodyguards that the desk, bed, and cabinets in my room were all made of high-quality golden Nanma wood. Grandfather has many villas in the suburbs, but he prefers living in the countryside to breathe fresh air, so this is what the life of the truly wealthy is like. Rather than relying on women to use their looks as bargaining chips in business dealings, Grandpa sighed. "If it weren't for your father insisting on becoming a painter, he should be overseeing the auction house right now. Too many things have happened recently, making it hard for my mind to keep up." I held onto Grandpa's arm. "Grandpa, if it weren't for you that day, I would have surely died there." I knew the old man missed me that day and wanted to bring me back. When I removed the bandages, he was secretly wiping away tears, but he just wouldn't say it. Grandfather held my hands and said earnestly, "If you don't want to learn those tedious things, then don't. I won't force you to carry on my legacy. I have enough money for you to live comfortably. It's just that Grandpa doesn't want you to become an uneducated slacker." I shook my head and interrupted Grandpa. "Grandpa, that piece of land owned by Boss, who is an ancient tomb from the Southern Wei period, isn't it? It's located in a remote and secluded area outside the city. Yet Boss absolutely refuses to sell it. It seems likely that it's the burial ground of his ancestors." Grandpa's eyes welled up with tears. He understood my decision. Summer vacation, dull and tedious, yet I find it sweet as honey. I never realized history was filled with so many heroic figures, nor did I know that Shishir, though she employed the beauty trap, did so for the greater good of her homeland. Many treasures have been scattered abroad due to the ravages of war, and my grandfather's lifelong wish is to bring them all back to their homeland. Understanding is necessary to distinguish truth from falsehood. Some treasures may have flaws due to accidents, such as the multifaceted seal of Dugu Xian. I want to major in archaeology to help my grandfather fulfill his lifelong wish. When school started, I never saw Qin Miao again. I know, just like me in my previous life, she has completely become a manipulated puppet after school. Grandpa still came to pick me up in his ox cart. When I got home, I found my stepfather and mother standing at the door. They said they wanted to take me back. After my father died, I was registered under my mother's name on the household register. Li Jing's ugly and evil face was clearly revealed. Before, he didn't want to have two burdens. but now he says I am also his daughter. I spit on that. He is threatening Grandpa either to hand me over to him to take to a company drinking, or to give him the treasure from the last auction. Grandpa's face turned red with anger as he pointed at Mom. I never approved of Chinhao marrying you in the first place. Are you even fit to be a mother? Don't think I don't know you've been involved with Li Jing for a long time. He's your ex-boyfriend. No wonder Mom wanted to remarry as soon as Dad died. Maybe Dad's death. I don't dare to think too much about it. Although Grandpa was angry, he still gave away the glass treasure vase and had them sign the agreement. I am no longer on the same household registration as my mother. I feel a bit guilty. If it weren't for me, Grandpa wouldn't have been threatened. But Grandpa turned around and curled his lips into a smile. They don't even know how to appraise things properly. I said it has great S-level appreciation potential, but the glass treasure vase isn't that old historically. If he's waiting for it to appreciate, he might as well wait for death. I was afraid that Grandpa was just trying to comfort me, so I secretly looked through the classics and found that it was indeed true. Li Jing is so foolish. It seems I should study even harder. A year passed quickly, and under the guidance of the renowned teacher Grandpa hired, my grades were excellent. Chen Miao was forced to study in his previous life, while I was very proactive. Even the teacher we hired said I was very diligent in my studies and would surely inherit my grandfather's legacy in the future. I can't compare to my grandfather, so I need to work even harder. Grandfather and I moved to a villa in the suburbs, which is closer to the school, as he wanted to provide me with a better learning environment. Although Grandpa doesn't say it, I know he also cares about Chen Miao. Because we are both our father's daughters, the bloodline of the Chen family. The last time I heard news about Chen Miao was when Miss Lin, who was close to her, complained about her in the women's restroom. That vixen, she looks so innocent, but yesterday she showed up at my house dressed like that, seducing my brother to dance. How disgusting. The clothes Li Jing gave were all very revealing, but I would deliberately injure myself to exchange them for something slightly more normal. Chen Miao. No, Li Miao believed that as long as she complied unconditionally, she could achieve the life she wanted. By this time, that younger brother was already over a year old. All the love from my stepfather and mother will go to him. Li Miao is merely a tool to help the Li family accumulate wealth. The college entrance exam is coming soon, and I won't even rest on Saturdays and Sundays. While learning treasure appraisal and soil layer identification from my grandfather, I also study basic subjects. My scores on several diagnostic exams have consistently been around 610, which is far from enough. Grandpa is very concerned about me and always urges me to rest more, but when his words don't work, some late-night snacks and a cup of warm milk will appear at my door. True care is never in words, but in the actions through which he expresses his love for you. Mom says she loves me, but it's only to push me away. My stepfather says he treats me as his only daughter, but it's for his own benefit. After the college entrance exam, I achieved my goal with a score of 630 and applied for the archaeology program at S University. Grandfather received an invitation, sent by the Li family. It was a farewell banquet for Li Miao. Grandfather was indeed concerned about Li Miao's situation, so we arrived together at the entrance of the Li family's home. It was a very luxurious affair, and Li Miao numbly descended from the second floor in a pristine white dress. Her makeup was beautiful, but it lacked vitality. Li Miao spotted me and Grandpa, and was asked by her stepfather to come over and exchange pleasantries. After all, in Li Jing's eyes, Grandpa was someone worth engaging in a few words with. Li Miao walked over and said to me without any courtesy, "Did you come here on purpose to watch me make a fool of myself? Well, you're out of luck. I'm about to go abroad to study and get engaged to Fu Xinian." It seems she doesn't know what Fu Xinian is really like in private. Of course, my stepfather wouldn't tell her either. I know because once, when Li Jing took me to the Sky and Earth Club to discuss business, I went out for some fresh air and saw him walking into a private room with 2 women in his arms. I actually hope her life gets worse and worse. But the old man was soft-hearted and told Li Miao she could come to him if she ever had difficulties, so I kindly told her to stay away from Fu Xinian. But Li Miao frowned and said, "You still covet my fiancé even now. Chen Xian, you really are a despicable person." Grandpa sighed repeatedly upon hearing Li Miao's words, saying he wished he had taken both of them away together. I patted Grandpa on the shoulder. This was Li Miao's own choice. She was the one who chose to die with me. In another life, she was also the first to choose. Li Miao relentlessly pursued a life of wealth and status, yet overlooked those who truly cared for her. The banquet proceeded smoothly, with Li Miao on stage accepting Fu Xinian's ceremonial kiss, her face displaying a sickly expression of happiness. Li Jing embraced Li Miao with fatherly affection and gave her a black card. That black card had no money, it was merely for show. In my previous life, I did not fully comply with Li Jing's demands by appearing in revealing attire at various banquets. I only numbly allowed them to grope and make jokes during gatherings that were exclusively for men. Therefore, Those ladies and young misses did not harbor any resentment toward me, although these young masters were still captivated by the charm Li Miao had cultivated. Their gazes were filled with contempt. They all knew Li Jing's purpose in cultivating Li Miao. Several wives gathered together, to think they're from the same mother. Miston the eldest stands there with an air of scholarly elegance, while the second one reeks of a seductive fox spirit. My husband fell for it last time and gave out $1 million order. After saying that, the wife glared at her son, warning him not to associate with Li Miao. Fu Xinian came over to ask for my contact information, saying we'll be family from now on, but I could see the predatory look in his eyes. He doesn't deserve it. Grandfather has eaten more salt than I have walked in miles. How could I not know that Li Jing was selling Li Miao? He privately found Li Miao, wanting to take her away. But Li Miao pushed her grandfather to the ground. Are you crazy, old man, pretending to be poor and then wanting to take me back? Aren't you just trying to ruin my happy life? Don't even think about it. Li Miao has gone mad. In fact, she was already mad in her previous life. I helped Grandpa up with a pained heart and looked coldly at Li Miao, saying, "You've brought this upon yourself. You'll face retribution." I stayed with Grandpa every day, fearing he would be heartbroken over Li Miao's actions. Soon, the day for school arrived, and Grandpa accompanied me to S University. He even bought me an apartment there. The old man still preferred country life. After giving me a few instructions, he reluctantly left. I would still receive his video calls, which he learned from Auntie Hong next door. I never expected to be the only one in the entire major. The teachers treated me like a treasure, and after seeing my guardian's name, they were especially kind to me. It was only after attending Mr. Chen's lecture that I was able to persist for so long. Returning home for the holiday, I saw my grandfather right at the village entrance. Everything was so blissful and wonderful. For years past, I graduated from university and returned to my grandfather's side, taking over the business he had built. I've also heard that Li Miao has returned. She learned nothing during her 3 years of high school, and in college, she knows even less, failing every subject. Li Jing could only pay to get her through. After all, they still need to maintain her image as a wealthy overseas returnee. In the international student community, she is notoriously known for her chaotic private life, with several PowerPoint presentations even circulating about her. Having felt too constrained at home, she completely let herself go once she was abroad. Additionally, the money Li Jing provided was insufficient to cover her daily extravagant expenses. As a result, she managed to deceive quite a few wealthy young men studying abroad who were unaware of her reputation back in China. The matter has escalated. Although Fu Xinian is not a good person himself, at least on the surface, he is the successful heir of the Fu family. How could he tolerate his future wife being associated with such disgraceful rumors? Thus, the Fu family chose to break off the engagement. Li Miao messed up this matter, and Li Jing directly beat her so severely at home that she ended up in the hospital. Can't you think about your brother? You know, now everyone says our family raised a whore. You've made your brother look down on in public. Mom kept chattering by the sickbed. If Grandpa hadn't told me to come see, I wouldn't have come at all. Li Miao yelled and made a scene. Mom frowned, called her crazy, and walked out. I set down the fruit basket and met Li Miao's gloomy gaze. You must think I'm ridiculous. When I think back to you telling me to stay away from Fu Xinian, I realize you must have been reborn too. You probably think that even in this second life, I'm still miserable. That man gave me his disease and still wants to break off the engagement. Not a chance. She laughed hysterically, her mental state clearly unstable. I simply watched her calmly. Isn't this what you wanted? Your own life can only be decided by you. After saying that, I left. I just didn't expect that the next day, I would see a piece of news on my phone. Li Miao pretended to beg Fu Xinian for forgiveness, and when he went out to see her, she stabbed him in the chest with a knife. No one dared to intervene, as it was clear to everyone that Li Miao was mentally unstable and now a lunatic. In the video, she castrated Fu Xinian while he was still conscious, then stabbed him countless more times until he stopped breathing. Then came another video, where she stood at the Li family's doorstep, her face covered in blood. One after another, people fell into pools of blood. Although Li Miao had her own faults for becoming like this, her mother and Li Jing were also unforgivable. I don't sympathize with any of them, because all they see is profit. They are all selfish gamblers. Grandfather also saw the news and suddenly aged a great deal. Li Miao was sentenced, and although Grandfather had some connections due to his contribution of donating the treasure, he did not use them to save her. Mistakes must always be made up for. Grandfather let out a deep sigh and handed over all his research materials to me. At an overseas auction, I calmly raised my paddle and bid on one treasure after another. The auction house dared not swap the items under my watch. for I had surpassed my master, having learned grandfather's methods of appraising treasures. Now, I am the most famous and skilled collector in the country, helping national treasures return to their homeland one by one. Upon hearing about my achievements, Grandpa laughed so heartily that he didn't even realize he had lost the leaf card game. As the sun slowly set, the shadows of Grandpa and me stretched long, falling onto the ridges of the fields. In this new life, I am living very happily. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I was reborn back to when I was 14, and my father gently asked me, "Do you want to stay in the country with your mom, or go abroad and get an extra 200 million? In my past life, I tearfully said, "I want mom." Then I watched helplessly as he kept a mistress, hired a nanny, and fathered 3 illegitimate siblings, all shoved in my mom's face as a cruel joke. My mom suffered for half a lifetime, unable to secure a decent divorce, left with nothing but the clothes on her back. I was manipulated, laughed at, destitute, and died in a foreign land. Even the plane ticket was paid for by friends pooling money. This time, I signed with a smile. 200 million, I'm taking it. It's not that I'm heartless. It's that I finally see clearly, in this family. No one ever truly cared about me or my mother. I refuse to be that weak, pitiful person anymore. In this lifetime, I'll make the money, I'll protect my life, and I'll personally take control of the game. Biological mother, when I've won big and she no longer needs to beg, I'll personally bring her home. I was reborn back to when I was 14 years old. Father had just returned from a board meeting, impeccably dressed in a suit with a perfectly straight tie. Sitting on the sofa in the study of the Lincoln family's ancestral home, a contract placed beside him, I stood before him, my school uniform wrinkled, hair a mess, just back from cram school, looking like a clueless middle schooler when it came to family matters. "Bella," he called my name gently, "your mother hasn't been emotionally stable lately. You can choose to stay in the country to accompany her, or go abroad to attend the school you like. After graduation, you can return, and I can let you try managing a portion of the company's shares in advance." He spoke earnestly and kindly, like an open-minded father. "I've already prepared the living expenses for your study abroad, 200 million, deposited into your personal account, for you to use as you see fit." In my past life, standing in this very spot, I was utterly stunned. 200 million, so much money. It really was a fortune, but now I know it was just a way to transfer assets. Mom sat on the living room sofa, not saying a word, her eyes red and swollen. Tearfully, I tore up the agreement, shredding it to pieces, and threw it at my father's feet. With reddened eyes, I shouted, "I want mom." I really thought I had one at the time. Looking back now, I was so foolish. That year, I naively chose to stay with my mother, and what happened? In less than 6 months, my father still sent me abroad and shoved me into the home of a female executive in the USA, claiming it was to broaden my horizons and groom me as the future successor. I became the only person in that mansion with no one to rely on, and in the end, even the housekeeper could boss me around. The female executive's pair of twins, seemingly harmless, are actually my father's illegitimate children, utterly wild. In the end, they even fought for the family fortune. And to think I once treated them like my own siblings. As for me, in the end, no one remembered I was the eldest daughter of the Lincoln family. Mom is still back in the country, all alone guarding the old house, desperately contacting schools, learning English, hiring lawyers, trying to bring me back. She still thinks she's the rightful wife, that she still has the right to speak up, until one day, she received a lawyer's letter demanding the return of the property rights to the house. She didn't move out. She sat in the empty living room, unwilling to even boil water, eating cold rice bite by bite, saying, "I'll wait for Bella to come back." On the other end of the phone, I heard the sound of her opening a medicine bottle and realized she had become so depressed she was afraid to sleep. I graduated at 19, and my first job was scrubbing floors in Melbourne's Chinatown. My second job was washing dog kennels in rich people's homes. The day my mother was admitted to the hospital, I was handing out flyers in a parking garage. The doctor called internationally to say, "She tried to jump off the building 3 times tonight, but without your father's authorization, we can't arrange compulsory treatment." I was standing outside the hospital, phone pressed to my ear, yet couldn't utter a word. The last time I saw her was 5 minutes before the cremation. She could no longer hear me calling her. At that moment, I finally understood. She didn't lose to David Lincoln, she lost to me. The daughter she spent her life protecting was never strong enough. In this life, the agreement is placed before me once again. I didn't cry. I simply picked up the pen and decisively signed Bella Lincoln. My father raised an eyebrow, as if truly sizing me up for the first time. "Have you thought this through?" "I have," I replied, looking at him with calm composure. I paused, then added, "As your only child." It's only right that I go out and gain some real-world experience. I emphasized the word only with particular weight. He froze for 2 seconds, then chuckled softly, as expected of my daughter, David Lincoln. Such ambition. I laughed too, only, my laughter was far more sober than his. He thought I had finally come to my senses and was willing to obey, but deep down, I knew sending me away was just to bond early with his illegitimate child. Getting rid of me would free him from Mrs. Lincoln, making it easier to legitimize his female executive. Too bad my mother would never understand. She's still living in a dream, thinking he'll eventually come back. She doesn't know that once I sign this agreement, both she and I will be kicked off the Lincoln family's gaming table. That night when I returned to my room and closed the door, the moon outside the window was cold. I didn't cry. I just turned on my computer and logged into that black card account. 200 million, deposited. I stared at the balance for a full minute, then pulled open a drawer and took out a notebook. On the first page, I wrote, David Lincoln's illegitimate children, Jack Lincoln, Wendy Lincoln, birthplace, New York, offshore trust accounts under David Lincoln's name, pending investigation, flow of shares from Mother Mrs. Lincoln's dowry company, pending investigation, goal, within 4 years, reclaim everything that belongs to me and my mother. I clicked open the photo of my mom. Her youthful smiling face was still before my eyes, wearing that old trench coat from 10 years ago, grinning like a fool. Later, she gave that trench coat to the housekeeper, saying her family wasn't well off, and then I saw it in the trash, the coat smeared with cake crumbs and dirty footprints. In this life, I will never believe in anything again. It's not that I'm heartless, it's that I've finally seen the truth. In this family, no one ever truly cared about me or my mother. Starting today, Bella Lincoln, will use these 200 million to turn the Lincoln family's rotten game upside down, step by step. The night I signed the papers, the sky was pitch black, but the living room light remained on. As I went upstairs, I turned back at the stairwell and saw Mom still sitting there. Her eyes were as red as freshly peeled shrimp shells, clutching the pencil case I used as a child. On it was the name I'd pieced together with stickers, Bella Lincoln. She seemed to want to say something but closed her mouth instead, lowering her head as if lost in thought, or perhaps trying to convince herself. I didn't say a word, turned around, and went back to my room. As soon as the door closed, the world around me fell silent, yet my heartbeat was deafening. Lying on the bed, I counted to 500 with my eyes closed. The moon outside the window didn't move, and neither did she sleep. I heard rustling sounds coming from her room. The faint clinking of medicine bottles, the sound of a water glass falling to the floor, and a whisper so soft it was almost inaudible, "She's changed." Of course, she didn't know that what I had changed was a lifetime's worth of regret and tears. At 2 in the morning, I quietly went downstairs. She was still sitting on the sofa, leaning against a cushion, her eyes open like a doll that had run out of batteries. I walked over and covered her with a thin blanket. She seemed startled. Lifting her head slightly, "You're still awake." Her voice was hoarse, like an echo retrieved from a pile of sand. "Write the application." I paused, telling a little white lie. She nodded. I looked at her, and she looked back at me, as if trying to detect any hint of softening or hesitation on my face, but there was none. The hope in her eyes gradually faded, like the last rain of summer. She asked me in a hoarse voice, "Do you blame me?" "No," I said. She gave a bitter smile. "Your father didn't suddenly give you 200 million, he didn't want to send you abroad, he wanted to send you away." "I know." She looked up at me, her eyes frighteningly bright. "Then why did you still sign?" I didn't answer, because I couldn't explain to her, explain how I'd already witnessed her defeat once, explain that if I didn't leave now, it would be too late for everything. She clutched the copy of the agreement tightly, tears splashing onto the paper with a smack, as if nailing me to the spot. "I'm not trying," she murmured. "I've been fighting with everything I have, but he never intended for me to win." At that moment, I really wanted to hold her, to tell her I'd protect her for the rest of my life, but I didn't move. I just watched her slowly curl back into the sofa, wiping her tears while biting her lip. Living like a child who had been kicked out of the house, my chest tightened, but I couldn't soften my heart. I knew. It was from that one hug on this very night in my past life that I fell back into the emotional quagmire. I let her emotions dictate my actions, and the result was her jumping off a building in the end. Even taking leave to return home required me to work and save up for the plane ticket. This time, I can't afford to be soft-hearted again. I turned around and went back to my room. At 4:30 in the morning, she finally fell asleep. I wasn't the slightest bit sleepy. I opened my email and started preparing documents for going abroad, transfer applications, visa materials, transfer plans before account freezing, and that never disclosed Plan B list Mom never knew about, list of executives from branch companies of the Lincoln family group, property transfer records under their names, contract loophole locations, offshore asset management trust window. And the future air program training list. First place, Jack Lincoln, age 3, future enrollment at a prestigious preparatory school in New York. I gently nibbled on the pen cap, circling the name Jack 3 times. Jack, how ridiculous. Just think about it, years later, when the media hypes up the prestigious Lincoln family group, boasting about their only child, treasured by his father, it makes me want to vomit. In my past life, I watched him enter the company, sign contracts, lead projects, and get praised by the media as a young prodigy, while the public conveniently ignored the fact that he was a bastard. This time around, he'll have to go through me first. At 7 a.m., my mother woke up, her eyes swollen and her face sallow. I finished washing up and was about to head out when she stood by the door to stop me. "Bella," she called out, her voice trembling slightly, "it's not too late to change your mind." I paused and turned back. "Not this time," I said. "I'm going out to win. And then I'll bring you back." She looked at me and didn't speak for a long time. Finally, she nodded, not shedding a single tear, and only said, "Then don't lose." I smiled. "Don't worry, I won't." As I closed the door and stepped out of the Lincoln family's estate, the sunlight was bright, the sky was blue, and the wind was a bit cold. The day I went abroad, David Lincoln personally drove me to the airport, in the car. My mother was also there, sitting in the passenger seat, silent. She had spent a full 3 hours on her makeup. Her lipstick was too red, her powder too heavy, but her face looked as if drained of blood. She kept staring out the window, watching the road she had walked countless times, as if sealing herself into her memories along the way. David Lincoln wore that slightly worn navy blue suit, his smile impeccable. To outsiders, he was the perfect husband and father. He held the steering wheel, talking to me about school matters while turning to my mom and saying, "I've already arranged Bella's accommodation. Luna will take care of her over there, and the child will feel much more at ease at her place." My mom didn't respond, only tightening the strap of her handbag until her knuckles turned white. Of course, she knew who that Luna was, the youngest female executive in the company, 35 years old, with dual MBA degrees. Beautiful, sweet-talking. And most importantly, she had already given birth to a pair of twins for David Lincoln 3 years ago. The HR department of the Lincoln family group even gave her a nickname, the Crown Princess of the company. It's not that my mother didn't know, she just pretended not to. Just like this time, she was still wearing her most expensive champagne gold dress, said to be the first luxury item my father bought for her after he made his fortune. Mom sat in the passenger seat with her back perfectly straight. She should send me off like a proper lady, even if after sending me off, she becomes a woman no one remembers. At the airport, my father's driver was already waiting at the VIP lane, pulling my luggage. My mother held my hand and softly asked, "Do you have your passport? Did you pack any cold medicine? Don't forget that cashmere scarf." I nodded while watching her eyes turn red. She tried to smile but couldn't hold it back. Her voice tightened. "If it's cold there, just video call me, and I'll send you clothes." My eyes grew warm, but I held back my tears. "This isn't goodbye, it's parting." Father stepped forward, gently putting his arm around her shoulders, and said to me with a smile, "Your mom has been so worried. She hasn't slept well these past few nights." Mom's eyes trembled, clearly unsettled by the phrase "your mom." Her eyes actually reddened, as if she was being loved all over again. I looked at her, both angry and heartbroken. This is her. Even knowing she's been utterly betrayed, she still tries to scrape together a shred of security from the tiniest bit of feigned affection. Perhaps it's because she spent her entire youth by his side. I stood up and walked toward the boarding gate when Mom suddenly hugged me. "Bella," she buried her face in my shoulder, her voice trembling uncontrollably. "If it gets too hard over there, just come home. I'll always be here." I patted her back. "Mom, wait for me." "Wait for what?" "I'll come back and take back everything that rightfully belongs to you," I whispered softly into her ear. She froze for a moment, her eyes blank, then nodded. "Okay, I'll wait for you, Mom." When I turned around, I saw my father still holding her, looking like a loving old couple, reluctant to part with their daughter before she went abroad. Only I knew that in his office drawer, he still kept a photo of Luna with their 2 children at Disneyland, smiling more genuinely than in any of our family portraits. Only I knew that this didn't stop him from leaving all his fortune decades later to those illegitimate children outside. I walked into the VIP lounge, where Luna was waiting for me on the sofa. She wore a camel-colored trench coat, her makeup was impeccable, her lipstick a cool-toned rose pink, and her earrings twinkled. They were the latest Chanel design. Clearly, my father had given her quite a bit of money. She stood up, smiling as she extended her hand toward me. "Bella, it's so nice to see you again. I've heard so much more about you from your dad." I didn't shake it, just nodded. "Thank you for your trouble." She didn't mind either, turning her hand to pick up her purse. "No trouble at all. From now on in the USA, just think of me as family. If you need anything, Don't hesitate to ask, I smiled. She thinks I don't know who she is. In my past life, I lived in her house for 4 years. I knew exactly which drawer locked away the child's vaccination records, which passport was hidden in the safe, how many nannies she had gone through, and what time of night she liked to call David Lincoln. She thinks I remember nothing. She doesn't know. I came back to settle the score. Luna took me aboard a private jet, where the seats were spacious. The flight attendants bowed while serving water. Everything felt like a fairy tale. After sitting down, I didn't say a word. I just inserted the new SIM card, turned on location, internet, and recording permissions, and linked the financial accounts in the background with SMS verification. I knew that by leaving like this, I was completely saying goodbye to my identity as the eldest daughter of the Lincoln family. They could now peacefully raise their illegitimate child. But they would soon find out. I wasn't the daughter who was sent away. I was the creditor who had returned. The day I landed, it was 5 a.m. The sky over Los Angeles was still dark, and outside the cabin, a quiet pale blue stretched endlessly. Carrying my suitcase, I followed Luna off the plane. She wore a gentle smile, walked with purpose, and seemed like the perfect caretaker. Bella, you didn't get much rest last night, did you? Let's grab some breakfast first. Do you prefer Chinese or Western food? She asked with such intimacy, as if she truly regarded me as her own daughter. I smiled faintly. Either is fine. Thank you, Auntie Luna. A flicker passed through her eyes, seemingly pleasantly surprised that I had addressed her as Auntie Luna. Little did she know, this term of endearment was something I had struggled to utter for 3 years in my past life, and now, in this lifetime, it was the first chip I would use to collect interest. The car was her own, a black Porsche Cayenne, clean, luxurious, with a neatly organized trunk already stocked with a toiletry bag, a school uniform-style consultation list, and a life guide handbook. I got into the car, and as the windows closed, everything fell into silence. Luna chatted the whole way, asking what color room I'd like, whether I wanted a tutor, and if I was interested in learning horseback riding, tennis, or golf. Her words sounded polished, every sentence seemingly for my benefit, but I didn't believe a single syllable of it. She says you're like a daughter to me, but her real biological child is sleeping in the nursery of her suburban villa, with a custom English name on the door and thousands of dollars worth of picture books and toys piled inside. They were twins, born quietly in the USA by Luna when David Lincoln turned 42. They're only 3 years old now, won't bother me, won't appear on social media, and most importantly, won't be known by Mrs. Lincoln. Luna is a smart woman. She knew David Lincoln hadn't finalized his divorce yet, and she also knew Mrs. Lincoln still held voting rights on the board, so she hid everything well, hiding the child, hiding her ambitions, and hiding her grand plan to have the entire Lincoln family empire eventually belong to her son. Right now, I'm just a pawn under her cover. She knew I had good grades, a soft personality, was easy to control, and obedient enough to understand the bigger picture. Sending me abroad was nothing more than David Lincoln giving in to her persistent nagging. Your dad says you have exceptionally high emotional intelligence, unlike some kids who only know how to study rigidly, she said, smiling as she sized me up. Let me be honest with you, he actually thinks very highly of you. I smiled. Really? I had no idea. She paused, then continued softly, don't overthink it. Your father just isn't good at expressing himself. Men, you know. Their hearts are in their careers. Focus on your studies now. Once he's sorted things out, everything that's meant for you will be yours. After all, you're his only daughter. I nodded. Thank you, Auntie Luna. I'll listen to you more from now on. Her brows and eyes relaxed, as if she had completely let down her guard. Good child. I lowered my gaze, my nails digging into my palms. In my past life, I was just as obedient, living in her house for 4 years like a shadow with no presence. She celebrated my birthday every year, inviting a few children of my father's friends over for dinner. Among them was her own daughter. The little girl looked like David Lincoln and could call me sister by the age of 3, though she never truly acknowledged me as one. She just watched the adults laugh at how unnecessary I was. At that time, my mother had already been admitted to the psychiatric ward, repeatedly murmuring my name. In this life, I won't be the obedient child anymore. But on the surface, I'll pretend to be more well-behaved than anyone else. Luna's home was decorated like a showroom. Even the tableware was limited edition. She arranged for me to stay in the guest room, where the window overlooked the pool. The floor-to-ceiling glass was adorned with the words "Welcome Bella," as if it were a meticulously planned grand gesture. After my shower, I saw she had already prepared my enrollment materials for tomorrow. Even thoughtfully printing out the school introduction and course plan. Get some rest early to adjust to the time difference. I'll drive you to school tomorrow. The first day always calls for some company, she said softly. I nodded. Thank you, Aunt Luna. She smiled contentedly. At 11 o'clock at night, the light in her room went out, yet I sat at the desk in the guest room, opened the small laptop I carried with me. and began synchronizing the memories of my past life with the current layout. I stared at the screen for a long time, until the moon rose outside the window and the night was as still as water. In this life, I'm not here to live under someone else's roof, I'm here to overturn their iron-fisted rule. Luna knocked on the door promptly at 6:30 the next morning. I was already awake. "Bella, time to get up, breakfast is downstairs," she said softly, as if coaxing a small animal. I sat up in bed and opened the door casually. "Morning, Aunt Luna." She froze for a moment, probably not expecting me to get into the mood so quickly. "Good girl," she laughed. "Go downstairs for breakfast, and I'll take you to school later." On the dining table were milk, sandwiches, cereal, and a finely sliced fruit salad. As I sat down, a small shadow darted out from the other end of the living room. "Mommy, I want a hug." The little girl threw herself into Luna's arms, her sweet words enough to make one's teeth ache. I looked over. She was wearing pink pajamas printed with Daisy Duck. Her hair soft, her gaze timid, with a trace of milk still at the corner of her mouth. Only then did I notice that her eyes and brows bore some resemblance to her father's. She looked up and saw me, immediately quieting down, her eyes scanning me as she asked softly, "Who is she?" Luna stroked her hair and said, "She's your sister." "Sister?" The little girl tilted her head and looked at me again. "Why don't you look like me?" I lowered my head and smiled gently, replying in a soft tone, "Because my parents are different from yours." She bit the straw, nodding with a vague understanding, but only I noticed the faint discomfort in Luna's eyes. At that moment, the little boy also came down the stairs, holding an incredibly cute rabbit plushie. He didn't speak, just stood on the steps watching me, his gaze as wary as a cat's. I smiled at him. "Good morning, Jack." He ignored me, only lifting the rabbit slightly higher, as if declaring his sovereignty. Luna looked slightly awkward. "They're a bit shy around strangers. Don't mind them, it's fine. Take your time," I said with a smile. "They're still young after all." I scooped a spoonful of cereal and took a sip, lowering my head to hide the turmoil in my eyes. This Luna didn't even bother to hide it. Who knows if she really thinks I'm stupid. Both children bear David Lincoln's surname, yet she claims their father works abroad. In my past life, this was how I had breakfast, watching one of them call her mommy while the other ignored me. For years, I went from being a sister to the Lincoln family's estranged daughter, then to a guest, and finally not even that. My school records were mysteriously erased, and I had to go through their approval process just to apply for a return to my home country. Not this time. This time, I'll make them hand over the future to me willingly. Before sending me to school, Luna didn't forget to pull the two children along and say, "Come on, say goodbye to your sister." "Goodbye, sister." The little girl waved cheerfully, while the little boy remained silent, only letting out a muffled grunt. I turned back to look at them, smiling and nodding. "Goodbye, good kids." This good child was said for them to hear, and also for Luna. I know she's very smart and sensitive. She notices every glance, every word I say, even the way I walk, so I have to act even more harmless than she does. When she walked me to the school gate, carrying my bag, she started nagging again. "Lunch will be provided at school. Remember to stay hydrated. The climate in L.A. is dry. Call me anytime if you need anything." I looked at her gentle eyes and brows, her perfect smile. Thinking she was truly a born actress, I pretended to listen attentively. "I'll remember that, Aunt Luna. Thank you." She nodded in satisfaction. Before I entered the school gate, her final words were almost whispered into my ear. "Bella, you must understand, abroad, no one can hold an umbrella for you. You have to rely on yourself." I paused for a moment and smiled faintly. "Yes, I understand." Carrying my backpack, I walked through the school gates. The sunlight so bright it made it hard to keep my eyes open. Ahead lay new classmates, new teachers, a new schedule, and the intricate new game I was about to carefully weave. But I wasn't afraid, because I wasn't here to take shelter from the rain. I was here to lay mines. At noon after school, I didn't go home but went to the nearby library to meet a former schoolmate I had contacted long ago, an international student majoring in accounting who had worked on the North American accounts of the Lincoln family. "You're saying the Lincoln family's acquisition in the Americas involved fake accounts?" I asked in a low voice. He nodded, his eyes evasive. "I don't want to get too involved. I was just asked to modify 2 invoices. It was indeed a money laundering channel. I dare not say who." I took out a business card bearing the logo of the headhunting company he would seek out in the next 3 years. "I know who will check your future resume, and I also know which company you'll intern at after graduation. Whether you can land the job depends on how much you say today." His face turned pale. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm the daughter of David Lincoln from the Lincoln family group," I said slowly, "the legitimate, rightful daughter of Mrs. Lincoln." Without further hesitation, he sent the 2 hidden fake accounts to my email. I couldn't help but smile as I accepted the documents. This time around, I won't be obedient anymore, nor will I be slow. I'll use every rule they taught me to nail them down one by one on the table. On the day I return, I'll make sure David, Lincoln, Luna, and their little prince and princess know I'm not their pawn hidden away in America. I'm the hunter they unknowingly raised. Time flew by during my days in America as I immersed myself completely in the whirlwind of academic pursuits. Apart from school courses, I also learned many things thanks to my status as the eldest daughter. I have to admit, Luna took good care of me, at least on the surface. I stayed in a meticulously prepared guest room with my favorite cream-colored curtains. The desk always had fresh stationery and a daily planner. The kitchen fridge was fully stocked, and she would be waiting at the school gate every day after class. Just like a real mother, she was very cooperative with what I needed to learn. She had to be, after all, following the path of my previous life. The capable but naive version of me would ultimately pave the way for her son. She never showed me a cold face. On the contrary, she often praised me in a tone of admiration, calling me independent, intelligent, and well-mannered. She even frequently introduced me to others as the future successor of the company. Sometimes, I couldn't help but admire her acting skills. Even more natural than Luna were that pair of twins. They have completely regarded me as their one and only sister. Every night, the little girl insists that I tell her a bedtime story. The little boy always demands that I arrange his toys before sleep and loves having me carry him to wash his hands. They cling to me like vines to a tree, cautious yet giving their all, but I know it's not out of love. It's simply because they're still young. They don't know who I am, nor do they realize we're not a family of three. They also don't know that as they grow up, Luna will personally drag me down from this elder sister position, step by step, until I'm trampled into the dust. But for now, I'm in no hurry. The more they love me now, the greater their pain will be later. I accompany them in drawing, playing the piano, reading English picture books, and playing role-playing games. In their eyes, I am the best, gentlest, and most considerate sister. They call me Sister Bella, and they even argue with other kids in kindergarten, saying, "My sister is the most beautiful, and she will protect me." I always smile and pat their heads, saying, "Of course, I will protect you for a lifetime." I wasn't lying either. I'll protect them, until they learn how their mother protected mine. At night, I curled up on the sofa doing homework while a business interview program played on TV. A familiar logo flashed by as the host said warmly, "Today we've invited Mr. David Lincoln, chairman of the Lincoln family group. Welcome." The camera zooms in. My father is still wearing that well-tailored suit, sitting properly in front of the camera with a gentle smile. I stare at that face for a few seconds. It's so familiar that it reminds me of my childhood, when I was watching TV in the living room and he patted my head, saying, "Bella, you should go to a university in the future." The host asked with a smile, "Mr. Lin, I heard your family is happy and harmonious, and you have a daughter, Miss Bella Lincoln, who is currently studying in the United States. Is that correct?" My father nodded, his smile unchanged. "Yes, I only have one child," the host joked. "Oh my, with so many businesses and such a large family fortune, Miss Lin will have quite the pressure taking it all over by herself." My father paused slightly, his smile faltering for a moment. Yes, but I believe she can do it." I straightened up, staring at the familiar face on the screen, a faint smile tugging at the corner of my lips. This was David Lincoln, facing the camera. He remained as flawless and impeccable as ever, but I caught a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, a hint of guilt, that instinctive evasion. Only I could read it. It wasn't that he couldn't bear to let me take over alone. He was practically dying to tell the whole world, "Actually, I still have a son. The true heir is not her." I turned off the TV and sat in the darkness, unmoving for a long time, until my phone screen lit up with a notification from back home. The live broadcast of the board's quarterly meeting is about to begin, with the Lincoln family group planning to launch the next round of overseas acquisitions. I entered the live stream and typed in the hidden access password. On the screen were contracts, betting clauses, fund flow reports, and pages of speech records from the Lincoln family's top executives. I glanced at the list of executives, and the corner of my mouth curled up again. Luna's name was prominently listed. Her title has been upgraded to Global Strategy Execution Consultant, making her a core member of the Overseas Mergers and Acquisitions team. Everything unfolded just as it had in her previous life. She climbed the corporate ladder step by step, pacifying me and pretending to be my benefactor. Her act was flawless. As for me, I also methodically pressed the sync button, saving all meeting records to my private cloud drive, including the internal employee performance evaluation form she submitted last time, the one she personally signed, suggesting that the voting rights associated with my mother's nominal shareholding in the group be classified as a historical issue pending resolution. I smiled. "She's acting. I'm acting too. We're just following different scripts." She thought I was a horse that could be led away once the reins were on. But I was just waiting for her to run faster and faster, so I could stomp her down in one move. At 2 a.m., I sat at my desk, the light shining on my notebook as names, documents, and timelines appeared on the screen. I wrote down a line: Bella Lincoln, age 16, the sole legal heir of the Lincoln family, assets currently being reinstated, for years, not too long, not too short. The sunset in Los Angeles still glows golden, but I know it's time for me to leave. On the day of my college graduation, I didn't invite my father, only my mother was there. She wore a sapphire blue velvet gown, her complexion much better than 4 years ago. The fine lines at the corners of her eyes had faded, and the furrow between her brows was gone. Standing at the edge of the crowd, she watched me take off my graduation cap, smiling while discreetly wiping away tears. I walked over, and she grasped my hand, her voice trembling slightly. "Bella. Look at you, you've lost weight again." I smiled and squeezed her hand in return. "Mom, I'm fine. I've already started handling company matters. I'll be even busier after coming back. Don't worry, madam, the young miss is amazing. I've admired her discipline all these years." Luna, who had driven to pick us up, sat in the passenger seat with a polished smile. Her tone was light, like that of a harmless assistant. My mother also nodded. "You've worked hard all these years, don't say that. Bella is like half a daughter to me." As these words were spoken, I noticed a flicker of emotion pass through my mother's eyes, and her hands instinctively clenched tighter. I knew she actually understood everything, just waiting for a look back that will never come, but I didn't give her the chance to speak, because I knew that as soon as I started reminiscing, she would be trapped by the past again. The night before returning home, the two children quietly knocked on my door. "Sister." It was Wendy Lincoln, tiny, with soft, flat hair, wearing pink bunny pajamas, her eyes rimmed red. Behind her was Jack Lincoln, wearing a blue Superman t-shirt and holding his favorite Transformer. "How did you get here?" I feigned a bit of surprise as I led them inside. "You're going back to China." The little girl rushed over and hugged me, her voice sticky and sweet. "You promised to watch me grow up." "You lied." Jack Lincoln pouted, looking like a little adult. "Dad didn't even say you were leaving. I'm just going to work. It's not like I won't come back." I patted their heads. "Then can you video call us, say good night to us every day?" Wendy opened her grape-like big eyes, tears falling down like raindrops. I gently hugged her. "Of course, I'll miss you every day. They really are still so young, cleany, adorable." For a moment, they almost made me forget they were Luna's backup plan. The next day, when seeing her off at the airport, Luna gave me a big hug in the parking lot. "Bella, once your dad gets his work sorted out, you should really think about joining the group. After all, you're his only daughter." I nodded obediently. "I'll wait for his arrangements. The little ones are so heartbroken you're leaving." She sighed. They really didn't want to let go of their big sister, Auntie Luna. I interrupted her with sincere eyes. "They need me. And so does our country." She paused for a moment, then smiled. "All right, then it's your choice to make." As I picked up my luggage and stepped out of the airport, the sky was just beginning to lighten. I knew this step marked the true beginning of my return. I am neither the obedient daughter of the Lincoln family nor someone living under their roof. I am Bella Lincoln, my mother's daughter, the heir who has returned to the Lincoln family to reclaim everything. The first thing I did upon returning was to pull up the organizational structure of the Lincoln family's conglomerate and analyze the logic behind executive rotations. The second thing was to submit an anonymous resume through external headhunting channels, using an alias to apply for a position at the most promising subsidiary under the Lincoln family. No one knows who I am, only that I have an excellent education, solid experience, and speak with just the right measure. I'm a real talent. I don't want the position my father arranged for me. I want to dig deep, inch by inch, from a place beyond his control, because I know this well. Those who truly inherit the Lincoln family legacy are never the ones who sit around waiting for fate's handouts. As the plane streaks across the sky, my mind fills with my mother's words that night and the trust in the eyes of Luna's children. In that same media interview, David Lincoln said with absolute certainty, "Yes, she is my only daughter." I chuckled softly. "Yes, the only one. So this time, I want him to regret not cherishing this one and only. In the future, I will use the power of the media to elevate this one and only to great heights." The year I returned to China, I had just turned 18. David Lincoln personally came to pick me up at the airport, just as he had when he sent me abroad, dressed in a suit, smiling warmly. Behind him stood several top executives of the group. Even through my sunglasses, I could tell who were his newly promoted confidants and who were the seasoned veterans planning to test me. "Bella, you're finally back," he said. "Yes," I smiled. "Dad," he patted my shoulder with satisfaction. "Don't worry, the company has already arranged a position for you." Start with a rotation in the overseas investment department, work diligently, and there will be a place for you. I nodded. Thank you, President Lincoln. His movement paused, and the smile on his face cracked for a moment. I knew he heard it. I had long since drawn a line under his father, but he still needed me to be the poster child of the family daughter for the group's public image. Needed me to placate those nostalgic shareholders on the board, so I came back just like that. In the first year, I did odd jobs in the investment department, running market research, writing reports, burning the midnight oil, without putting on any airs. Everyone thought I was humble, capable, and well-mannered, and some even genuinely started to like me. The following year, I was transferred to the executive office, becoming a project coordinator. I attended various events with David Lincoln, took notes during meetings, and conducted post-meeting reviews. Quietly familiarizing myself with the power dynamics of the entire group, he began to trust me. In the third year, my mother finally moved out of the Lincoln family completely and into a newly purchased detached villa. She became quiet, clean, and composed, as if she had finally let go of everything, but only I knew that every time she saw photos of David Lincoln and Luna appearing together in the news, she would press her lips together, her fingertips trembling. "I'm fine," she said. "Don't feel sorry for me." I nodded. "I don't feel bad. I remember it clearly. That winter, Luna returned to China with a pair of twins, saying the children needed to receive Chinese education. The children were already 11 years old and enrolled in the city's top international elementary school. I prepared a big gift package in advance and went to their home to visit them. Sister." The two children threw themselves into my arms, their eyes and brows looking exactly like David Lincoln's. "Have you been good? Did you miss me?" I smiled and crouched down, handing them the carefully selected toys. "We missed you. Sister smells so nice. I told my teacher I want to grow up to be a big sister just like you." Luna laughed beside me. "See how attached they are to you?" I smiled too. "They're all clever kids." I reached out to stroke their hair, my eyes freezing over inch by inch. They're still young, still unaware of the weight they carry, but I know. That day when I got home, I gave my mother a call. "Mom, let me change your bodyguards for you. The winds have been too strong lately. Are you afraid something might happen to me, or that I might do something?" My mother asked softly. "Neither." I paused. "I'm afraid you'll steal my spotlight." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the phone before a soft chuckle came through. "Bella, you've grown up. In the 6 years since I returned to China, I climbed from job rotations to executive assistant, then to deputy project manager, and finally to board secretary, seizing every opportunity for advancement. Before the chairman's term renewal, I became the youngest member of the core secretarial team, involved in all document circulation and high-level meetings. I knew David Lincoln was wary, but he was too busy expanding the group to a market value of hundreds of billions. Busy paving the way for Luna and her son, so busy that he forgot when exactly I had infiltrated right under his nose. I didn't react, but everyone within the group's internal factions knew David Lincoln had only one child. Meanwhile, major media outlets at home and abroad spoke highly of Lincoln, the head of the Lincoln family group, praising him as a model private entrepreneur, frugal, with only one daughter. Given this reputation, even if he wanted to publicly acknowledge his biological son, he didn't dare show his face. And all of this was part of the trap I set for him. On my 28th birthday, David Lincoln unexpectedly fell ill. Karma came faster than I imagined. A sudden angina attack struck 10 minutes before the board's QA session, and he was rushed straight to the ICU. The media claimed it was due to overwork, but the board began reshuffling the moment he entered the operating room. I arrived at the hospital with the document case, finding Luna already waiting by the ward door, her face haggard with exhaustion. "Your father trusted you the most," she said, her eyes red. "The board is in chaos right now, and the group can't afford to fall into disarray." I smiled and handed her the document case. "Aunt Luna, I've brought a plan to stabilize the group." She hesitated for a moment before opening the file, flipping through the pages one by one. The first page was a temporary authorization proposal convened by the board of directors, already signed by 7 core directors. Only her signature was missing. The second page contained a proposal for restructuring the group's current shareholding structure. The third page was a photocopy of an anonymous whistleblower letter, alleging that the chairman had misused a total of 260 million yuan in group funds for a certain female executive and her children during his marriage, constituting significant financial misconduct and improper benefits transfer. Luna's fingers trembled. "Bella, she suddenly looked up. "What are you going to do?" My smile remained unchanged. "You said it yourself. I'm the only daughter of the Lincoln family. No, I'm here to claim what my father left for me." "You're betraying your father." "It's not me who betrayed him, but he who sold me out long ago." My voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp as a blade. "I'm merely taking hold of the hilt he handed to me." Luna stood up, her face pale. You won't succeed. Once your father wakes up, he'll stop you. He's already signed a will memorandum. I pulled out a document from my bag, handwritten, detailing custody arrangements for your child, and the transitional authorization for the chairman's position. She looked as if struck by lightning. How did you get this? Because I was the one who discussed it with him before his surgery. You're lying. Aunt Luna, I chuckled softly. You forgot, I stayed by his side for 10 years, while you only accompanied him for 3 years overseas. Luna froze completely. She finally realized that while she thought I was waiting for the group to acknowledge me or for David Lincoln to relent, what I was actually waiting for was for her child to grow old enough to understand this moment of their mother's downfall. The board meeting proceeded as usual. I stood at the very center of the conference room, flanked by my legal team and audit representatives. As I announced my interim appointment as acting chairperson, Luna's seat remained empty. David Lincoln was still in intensive care, and the twins had been taken away, permanently placed in a trust fund far removed from the group's operations. Someone objected. She's just a daughter. The chairman isn't even dead yet. And I only said one sentence. I am Bella Lincoln, the sole legal heir of David Lincoln, for the past decade. I have participated in every project document, every financial report approval, and every bidding session. Today is merely following legal procedures. No one spoke again. David Lincoln finally woke up. He had lost weight, and as he looked at me standing by his hospital bed, his voice was hoarse. Since when did you start? From the day you first mentioned $200 million to go abroad. He froze, as if recalling that spring moment when I signed and left. You don't hate me? He asked. I do, but there's no time for hatred now, I said. You raised wolves, so you should admit it was you who left the door wide open. He closed his eyes, his fingers trembling as he reached for the bell, but I had already turned to leave. At that moment, I finally heard him call out softly, Bella. I didn't look back. That winter, when the group released its New Year's greetings, the Lincoln Family Group's official homepage updated the chairman's portrait for the first time, a composed young woman with clear yet sharp eyes. Her name is Bella Lincoln. In 10 years, she transformed from a pitiful girl sent abroad into the true helm of the Lincoln family. She didn't reclaim her father's love, but she preserved her mother's dignity and won the entire world for herself. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window on the top floor of the corporate building, I received a transoceanic video call from the United States. On the screen were the 12-year-old twins, big sister. Mom has been crying a lot these days. She says you don't want us anymore. I froze for a moment, then softly replied, Don't worry, I'll always be here. That's all the story. What do you think of this story? Share with me in the comments section. What would you do if you were in this situation? Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.